share with you today. I just want to say two things. I'm not an expert when it comes to bees and butterflies. I'm not an entomologist, but I'm really excited about learning about bees and butterflies because there are so many amazing things flying around in our gardens, and I didn't even know that they were there until I was about 48. So I lived most of my life not even really being aware of all of the amazing world in the garden outside the house where I lived. Now, I became aware that there were native bees in Australia when I lived in Brisbane, and I used to go to Northey Street City Farm, which is a really great organic market and farm. And I went to a talk they did about native bees, and they were talking specifically about the native sugar bag bee. Have people heard about that type of bee, the sugar bag bee? Yeah. It's a very, very tiny, tiny little bee. There is an image of it on this poster here, and throughout the day I really urge you to come and have a closer look at these amazing pictures here on our bee poster and our butterfly posters, just to help us be able to identify these beautiful flying critters that are in our gardens. So that was when I became aware that there were native bees. But it wasn't until I moved to the Sunshine Coast and my amazing husband Douglas built a straw bale extension on our home, and he rendered it with a mix of clay, cow poo, straw and sand, and actually made a really beautiful render. We had a really lovely extension. But about 2 months after he finished doing that, I was sitting on the back veranda one day in the morning, enjoying my breakfast, and I could hear this buzzing around me, and I was looking to see where it was coming from, and there was this really large bee that was very close to the wall, and then I noticed that it went into a hole into the render of our straw bale wall. And I went into the other part of the house and I said, Douglas, there's something building a nest in the wall. Anyway, we did a little bit of investigation, and we found out that it was one of the particular types of native solitary bee. It was a blue-banded bee. And I thought, oh, a solitary bee. I didn't even know there were solitary bees. Wow. This is amazing. And when I looked more closely, there wasn't just one hole, there were about 20 holes. And so these 20 holes were being used by individual female blue-banded bees as their little nest holes to lay their eggs. So this really got me excited to learn more about native bees. And I have to tell you, it's very exciting because do you know that there's nearly 2,000 different species of native bee in Australia? And 70% of those bees are solitary bees. So what that means is they don't actually live in a hive like the English honeybee, but they are sometimes semi-social. Like I was explaining, the blue-banded bee, it had dug a number of tunnels. So there was a little cluster of 20 female bees all together, and they had formed their little nest sites in close proximity to one another. So about 70% of Australia's native bees are solitary or semi-social. And there's a lot of bees flying around you that you probably wouldn't even know were there. And I'm learning more and more and seeing more and more different species the more I learn about them. And I tell you what, it's so exciting when I see a new species because it's just really cool. And that's one of the reasons why I purchased this amazing poster. This beautiful lady, this amazing artist, her name's Gina Cranston. She lives in Newcastle. And she has done an incredible piece of artwork for all of us so we can learn about native bees. These are native bees of Queensland. She's also done a poster for New South Wales, Victoria and South Australia. And the South Australian bees are incredible. There are lots of very beautiful green metallic colours down in South Australia. And what they've just found just about 2 months ago, they were doing what they refer to as a bush blitz, where the entomologists go out into the bush to see what insects they're collecting, to look at the health of the environment. And guess what? They discovered 26 new species of Australian native bee that fit into a particular category that they're referring to as a silk bee. And these bees produce silk from their own bodies, and they line their nest holes with those to protect the larvae. Isn't that incredible?
Wow.
That is absolutely mind-blowing. So there are bees everywhere. They are various sizes. The little sugar bag bee is very, very tiny, and you will notice when you look at the poster, the little dark silhouette beside each of the bees is the approximate size of the bee. So the sugar bag bees are very, very tiny. But there are also really large bees, some big whoppers. And here in this garden there are 7 different species from this poster that we've noticed here in this garden. One of them being the great carpenter bee.
It looks like a humblebee.
It does. It looks like a huge big bumblebee, and it's very noisy. It's really, really noisy. And what she does, she's a buzz pollinator. What that means is when she lands on a flower, she vibrates her body or buzzes her body very, very fast. And what it does is it causes the pollen from the flower to completely cover her body. So that's how they get the pollen around. Pollination is such an important part of the life cycle of life. Donnie Gray was talking earlier about those beautiful fruits that he's sharing with us, talking about the seeds, and Noelle was talking about propagating from seed, and I'm sure all of you, being interested in gardening, have grown seeds from time to time. Well, those seeds have come from the cycle of those plants because there has been pollination through that cycle. It is so important for us to make sure that we are creating really healthy environments in our gardens for the pollinators. But bees are not the only pollinators. Butterflies pollinate. So do wasps. I used to really not like wasps very much because I thought all they did was sting you, you know. But I tell you what, they're great pollinators, and they're also a very beneficial insect to have in the garden because they can actually help control other pests, because they can lay their eggs in the eggs of other critters, and so the eggs of the wasps actually hatch and it will then eat the egg that it's been laid within. So they're an amazing part of the ecological system, and something that's really important for us all to be very mindful of in our gardens is to do our very best to try and reduce or remove completely chemicals, because chemicals are very, very detrimental to the natural environment and extremely detrimental to the ecology of our gardens and the world, the environment that we live in. Now, particularly for bees, one of the chemicals which is very, very nasty is a class of chemical called a neonicotinoid.
Cool.
That's a big word, and there's a few chemicals that fit into that category. One of the more common ones, which we may have heard of from time to time, or possibly even used in the past, is Roundup. It's a neonicotinoid. And what these type of chemicals do is they actually are absorbed by the plants, and they are exhibited in every single part of the plant. Every part. Roots, leaves, flowers, everything. So with this particular class of chemical, when it's being exhibited in flowers like that and in the pollen and in the nectar, and a bee comes to feed off that, or a butterfly or any other critter, it's getting that chemical in its system and it's going to die. So it's extremely important for us to remove these things from our garden and look at ways that we can actually create a really, really healthy environment in the garden without the use of chemicals. sometimes we might think, oh, we've got an insect problem. How are we going to get rid of that? And often we will go to the fastest method, which is, sadly, often a chemical method. But it is possible to look at other ways that we can actually start to get the balance back. And one of them is to create habitat. Habitat for bees, habitat for butterflies, and habitat for every other particular thing that is part of the entomology world. And one of the things that's really important is planting natives. So if you have room in your garden or on your property to put some natives in, I really, really strongly urge you to do that, because you are creating beautiful food, natural food, for the native bees, the native butterflies, and all the other native critters to actually feed on. My husband Douglas and I are developing a property just 5 minutes drive from here on Granite Creek in Mareeba. We're very happy to be here. It's a wonderful climate. We have an acre and a quarter there, and Douglas has worked very hard over the last 18 months planting lots of natives. And I'm absolutely astounded at the diversity of insects that are appearing on this piece of land. When we moved there, or when we were able to start working with this piece of land, it did have some established native wattles and gum trees, but the rest was just a mowed lawn. And it doesn't look like that now. It's very, very wild, and it's really wonderful. And there's lots of food-bearing plants that are bearing food, and there's lots of natives that are providing food. We have got such an incredible array of birds showing up in the garden as well, and an amazing array of butterflies, and also an amazing array of bees. And I tell you what, they take the opportunity, all of these beautiful creatures take the opportunity to just do whatever they can to be part of the life cycle. They've got a purpose in their life. Just an example, Douglas has got a pile of, it's kind of like chicken mulch. I'm not quite sure what's in it, but there's this lovely pile of sandy, mulchy stuff we've got that we're using on the property. And just yesterday I noticed there's a beautiful little nest site of pardalote, because they like nesting in those sorts of environments. We've got a beautiful family of kingfishers that are living on the property and feeding off a huge array of insects. What you'll notice throughout the day, if you come and have a look at the little display I've put together, I've got lots and lots of just really great little reminders for people. You know, even really, really tiny gardens can still provide food for our beautiful bees and butterflies. It's just incredible what we can do. Native plants really do support life. It's absolutely vitally important that we include the natives. Now, if you do have a really small little area and you don't want it to be too wild, then perhaps I can suggest that you might want to make just a little, what we call a habitat tripod, and make a little area in one corner of your garden that's allowed to get a little bit wild. Because that will be providing a space for lots of wonderful critters to actually be part of your environment. There's a great little information sheet here about beneficial insects that are really great for controlling certain garden pests. So you might want to have a look at that throughout the day if you have a moment. And as I was saying earlier, it took me a while to realise that there's this incredible entomological world around us, you know. And for many, many years of my life, I just thought that these grubs and things, you know, were just there to be a part of a problem in my garden, but they're bird food too. Okay? So if we're spraying grubs and all the different things, then we're actually reducing the food supply of the other creatures which are higher up in the food chain. Very, very important. Something that I really want to touch on. Now, this might seem like a really dramatic statement. Have you got this killer in your garden? I didn't create this actually. This was created by another person, but another person who's very passionate about native bees. And the reason I want to bring this to your attention is this particular tree, which is a beautiful looking tree, particularly when it's in flower, and it's often a shade tree. This particular tree, the flowers produce a very, very thick nectar. And what happens when the sugar bag bee, the native sugar bag bee, goes into these flowers is they get stuck in the nectar and they actually drown inside the flower. And when I first came across this information, I thought, I haven't heard that before. Are you sure that's right? And on our property, there was a huge African tulip tree. And it looked beautiful and spectacular with its flowers. And it had a lot of shade. It was just like, wow, that's a really beautiful tree. It was in flower when I came across this information. So I went and had a really good look. And every single flower that I picked up off the ground had 4 or 5 dead sugar bag bees in it. So, just something for you to be mindful of. If you feel that you have a tree like this and you don't really want to remove it, then try and create a lot of other really good habitat that's going to support the life of the insects in your garden. There are a lot of these actually growing on the range, because when you go down the Kuranda range and you're driving along toward Cairns and you look up there this time of year when they're all in flower, they're everywhere. There's a lot of them. But at this time of year they are really reducing or contributing to reducing the number of sugar bag bees because of their flowers. I've also got a number of books. You might want to have a flick through them throughout the day. These are books that I have personally collected in my journey, just investigating this wonderful subject. There are a couple of books about butterflies, awesome books about butterflies. These belong to the Mariba Library, which is a wonderful library. And if you're not a member, I'll tell you what, it's a really, really great library. And it's really awesome to be able to access awesome books like this at your local library. So I really urge you to go and have a look in your library and see what they've got. So these need to return to the library, but please feel free to come and have a really good look at them because there's lots of information. Something I just learned recently is that butterflies have these really amazing ways of finding the plants that they want to lay eggs on. And around at the place where we're establishing, we decided that we wanted to put in some butterfly supporting plants. And one of them that we've put in is a plant, it's actually a vine. This beautiful vine here called the Aristolochia vine. And this beautiful vine is the native Dutchman's pipe, not the introduced Dutchman's pipe. There are a couple of species of butterfly that sometimes get confused and they lay their eggs on the introduced Dutchman's pipe, but the level of toxins in that vine is too much for the caterpillars and the caterpillars die as soon as they start feeding on it. This one here is wonderful for the a number of species of native butterfly. And we planted a number of these vines about 2-3 months ago, Douglas? About 3 months ago. And just about 2.5 weeks ago, we were there early one morning and I was doing some gardening and I saw a shadow sort of go over me and I thought it was a little finch or a little bird. And I looked up and it was a huge female Cairns birdwing. And I was like, oh my God! I was so excited, can't you tell? It was just amazing. It was seriously, I started crying, it was so amazing. Do you realise that the size of these butterflies, the female Cairns birdwing butterfly, the wingspan on that is 18 to 20 centimetres. That's huge. It's massive. And they're so beautiful when they're in flight, absolutely incredible. So she was busy laying lots and lots of eggs on the vines that we planted. And I checked a week later and there were caterpillars, really big spiky caterpillars. It was so great to see. So the amazing thing I learned about the Cairns birdwing, and they actually can be found down around Townsville as well, yeah, is they have these big spikes on them, and that is sort of their method of saying to everything else, don't eat me because I've got poisons in me. So what happens is they actually do eat the vine, which does have some poison in it.
They strip it completely.
They do.
There you go.
So you've got to plant it with
More than one.
something else that provides them with some more
They
shelter.
even took all the bark around the stem of the main part of them. It's a wonder it killed it, but it didn't.
It's amazing, isn't it? It really is amazing. But what happens with these particular butterfly, caterpillars of the butterflies, is they eat the leaves and the toxins actually go into those spikes. And they can actually give off a really, really bad smelly aroma as well that comes from the toxins that are in the spikes. It's really quite incredible. So these are some natives that Douglas has propagated. He's an amazing native propagator. I'm not very good at remembering all of the names of these. There are a couple of them that I do know, but most of them I don't. If you would like to know what they are, just ask myself or Douglas and he'll be able to help you. The other thing I just want to bring to your attention is one way that we can create a habitat for the native solitary bees is to provide them with some habitat, which is a little bit artificial, but they do work very, very well. Okay, you may have seen these around about the place. A lot of people refer to them as insect hotels. But Douglas and I like to refer to these beautiful little structures as bee motels, actually motels. And what happens is the bees, the little female bees, will go into these tunnels. They will lay some eggs in there. They will put some pollen into the little cell with the egg to provide provision for the larva when that egg hatches. And then that little bee will develop and then dig its way out and emerge. There's, Douglas has been creating these for about 18 months. We've seen activity of a number of different species of bee. And I just want to urge you to have a think about putting some structures like this in your garden. It doesn't take very long for the bees to find them. We've even been sitting or standing at the market here in Mareeba and also at Yungaburra talking to people about these beautiful bee motels, and a bee has gone into the motel while we've been talking about it. And that's pretty exciting. Yeah. Somebody said to me, you did that, Con.
How deep are the holes?
They're about 15 centimetres. Yeah. Some people make them shorter, but from the research from the books that I've read, that's a good depth. They don't go all the way through, obviously. They've got solid backs on them. But there are many bees out in nature that will be looking for something like this, hollow reeds, pieces of bamboo, things to put their eggs in to keep them safe. So I'm not quite sure what the time is, but I think I've probably been talking for quite some time now. If you want to come and have a chat to me throughout the day, ask any more questions, come and have a look at the display. Just to give you a bit more of an idea of what we've been talking about. One last little thing I will talk about, these little balls and bowls of marbles here. These are little water stations for native bees, because bees need water too. I don't know if you've ever noticed bees collecting water in your garden, but they do, and the reason we put the marbles in there is so the bees have something to land on and they don't drown in the water. But they can quite easily drown in that. You just fill some water into that and it gives a lovely place for native bees and some native wasps to be able to get access to water. So thank you for your time.
Can I just say, I find the biggest problem is knowing what the larvae look like, you know? What do Ulysses larvae, Ulysses grub look like? And because when you're gardening and you see something, you don't know whether it's going to chew away, it's a bad one, you've got to kill it, or whether it's a butterfly one and you leave it alone.
That's a fantastic question.
And all the books, they never show you the larvae, they just show you the butterfly.
This is why I really suggest people have a look for this book or get your own copy of this book. It's amazing because straight away it explained, just in the first couple of pages for me, how to identify a butterfly as opposed to a moth, for example, because they both are under the same umbrella in the entomology world. Okay, so butterflies tend to be more spiky and quite big. They will often have spots on them that are sort of
But
decoy eyes.
has it got the grubs in there, has it? That's the problem, see?
Yep, grubs,
Yeah,
identification,
right, yeah.
pictures, it's wonderful. As opposed to a moth, tends to be more hairy. Very, very hairy, but butterflies are more spiky and larger, and very colourful often as well. So this is a really wonderful book, this one. Yes?
I've got quite a lot of seed of Aristolochia tagawa, which is the bird with the butterfly, and I'll be happy to post it to people.
Oh, Catherine, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. So Catherine's just let us know she's got a lot of seed of the Astrolochia vine, which is the vine that is good for this one here. So if anybody's interested in that, then just come and talk to us throughout the day. We can get details and we can make connections. That's why this day is so important, and it's great just to make connections with everybody because you get to get some really cool things from it.
So how do you know the difference between the foreign Aristolochia and the native?
That's a great question, Sue. What I did was I got on Google, lots of really good information on Google. First of all, the introduced Dutchman's pipe has quite a large flower. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's many different ones. Some have a huge flower. If you get a huge flower, one has a long tail.
Yeah.
And they are not long.
Yeah.
The butterflies don't seem to go onto them, but
Yeah.
by accident, yeah.
This particular vine, the flowers on this, as you're probably already aware, so they're quite tiny.
Yeah, they look a little bit like a clove,
Yes, they're very, very
a
tiny.
big
Yeah.
clove,
Oh,
that we use in cooking.
So the best way really is, if you're going to try and access these things, is to make sure you're getting seed or plants from somebody where they know where the origins come from. And
It
what
doesn't
the-
always apply when you go to a nursery.
No, it
They
doesn't.
should have a tail.
They should have
It
names on
does,
the
but
Oh,
I have been to nurseries that have plants that are misidentified.
Oh, yeah, they shouldn't have one.
I shouldn't, but we just went to one yesterday.
Oh, really?
I had
Okay.
a misidentified plant.
That's something good to be aware of anyway. So, thank you for your time. Please come and talk to me throughout the day.
Because I've got two Aristolochias.
Yeah.
They look quite different and they attract different butterflies.
There is a Rockhampton birdwing, which has a different Astrolochia to grow on. I've tried to grow it, it doesn't grow on up here, but it has a different leaf. But
Yeah, it
it's
does.
made-
Yeah, it looks quite a different plant.
Yeah, but I haven't seen it flowering.
We were going to now listen to Sue's talk on medicinal herbs.
So it's up to you.